Hi, welcome back. So we're now on part 4 of the Proximal One tutorial series. So just to recap, this is an interactive audio system for Unreal Engine that allows you to create procedural music. And in this video we're going to have a look at the trigger system and how we can also stop audio. So what we've got so far in this level is just a drum track which is looping over, and we've got an audio instance. So most of that is using default settings. I've just changed the audio sample, and also we've got audio trigger time multiplier. We've set that to 4, so that will cause the audio to basically, when we're triggering it, it will start on the 4th bar. Okay, right, so let's just hit play and see what's going on. Okay, right, so I did actually change one setting and we'll have a look at that now. So you notice the drums are playing instantly, but this one isn't. So the reason for that is in the instance you've got this one, trigger settings, and you've got trigger method, and the trigger method just determines what actually triggers it. And so as you can see, if you look at this one, we've got use collision box trigger only, whereas on our drum track we've got use start and collision box triggers. So the start trigger, as the name suggests, will cause the audio to trigger straight away, and the collision box trigger is basically, this is the collision box, and when the player goes into this collision box, it will cause the audio to initiate its trigger, and then it will wait for the quantization boundary before it actually triggers the meta sound to play. So if we were to just change that one to we'll set it to start and collision box. So let's just see what happens now. Okay, so we've got different combinations in this drop down menu, because there's 3 different ways that we can trigger the audio. We can use the start trigger or the collision box. We've also got this one, use exit triggers. So what the exit trigger is basically when the player moves through the collision box and comes out the other side, it can send a signal to another instance to trigger that instance, and we're going to have a look at that in a moment. So the next few settings here are related to the exit triggers, but we've got a couple more that I just mentioned quickly. So allow meta sound to be re-triggered if it's already playing. So basically how it works by default, if a meta sound is already playing and the player was to re-trigger it somehow, it wouldn't interrupt it, but this setting allows it to be interrupted, and there may be some cases where you might want that to happen. It depends on your sound design. So this setting is basically used for the custom meta sounds, and what you want to do with custom meta sounds. So it just gives you the option and the freedom to do that. As an example, if you've got a sound that's got a long delay on it, you might not want to stop the meta sound straight away, because when you stop the meta sound, the delay will get interrupted. But if you're using this setting, then it will allow you to keep the delay going and be able to re-trigger the sound. So yeah, that's basically what that does. So next one, only trigger once. So this one, it was kind of added to sort of aid with the exit trigger system, and we'll have a look at that in a moment. So the next section we've got is the kill audio section. This is basically how we can determine the way that an audio sample will stop. So if we've got that ticked, then it's gonna accept a stop trigger. If it's not ticked, then the audio is just going to keep playing. If it's looping, it will just keep playing. If it's not looping, then it's going to play to the end of the sample and the meta sound would stop anyway. But if we've got that ticked, then it will accept a trigger to enable it to stop. So the next setting we've got is the kill audio type. So if we have a look at the drop down, we've got 3 different options here. We can play the audio to the end of the sample when we're using the audio sample mode rather than the custom meta sound mode. We can have the audio fade out, or we can have the audio stop immediately. Okay, and the next setting we've got fade out duration. So when that's set to fade out, it will use the duration that you set here. And then we've got use actor from level to stop the audio. So by default, if you're using a collision box, what would happen is when the player comes out of the collision box, it would initiate the stop trigger if you've got this ticked. But we can change that so that when the player collides with a static mesh actor in your level, then it would initiate the stop trigger that way instead. And we can just have a look at this actually. Let's see what happens at the moment when we leave the collision box. So you see we've got our fade out occurring, and if we were to, let's find an actor in the level to initiate that stop. So this is maybe this one, and we can just chuck that there. So any static mesh actor, I mean you could probably set up a static mesh actor like a floor panel or something that the player could walk on, and that could initiate your stop. But if we just select that one, so what we do, actually I need to come back to the instance, so we're on this one, and just use the eye picker, and then we can just select it and then just tick that. Now I'm gonna switch off fade out so that we can hear it stop immediately. So let's see what happens now. Okay, so right, okay, what's next? So the next setting we've got run kill audio type on quantization boundary. So you may have noticed that our stop is occurring instantly when it's triggered at the moment, and it's not very musically timed. But we can change that. We can have it so it is musically timed. So let's have a look at that. So if we click that, and then the next setting we've got quantization boundary to stop at. So that's basically the amount of time that it will take since the start of the audio. Sorry, the frequency, I should say, that it will enable it to stop since the start of the audio. So as an example, if we set that to 4 bars, when the audio is triggered, it will start counting, and then like on every 4th bar it will enable you to stop the audio. So or should I say, it will stop the audio on the first of interval of 4 bars that you get to. I hope that makes sense. So, well, we'll have a look at it anyway and see what it does. So if we click play now. See? So we had our stop trigger on a 4th bar interval. So what else can we do? So that would be a good time to show the exit trigger system and how that works. So what I need to do is create another instance in the level that we can trigger using an exit trigger. So what I'm going to do is just duplicate this instance, and just to ensure that we actually can tell that it's a different instance playing, it'd be a good time to actually choose a different sample. So this one, let's try this. Just gonna assign it, and if you look at these numbers, 33 means the loop begins at 33, the 33rd beat, I should say, and the loop duration is 32 beats, and we know here that it's also at 120 beats per minute. So right, so now we've got that in the level, we need to tell it that we want this to receive an exit trigger. So how do we do that? It's quite simple. So you need to go to the one that you want to send the trigger from. So if we click on that, and then we've got this box here that says send exit trigger. So if you tick that, and then you want to choose a number for it to work on. So you can have several of these. I don't know how many you can place in your level. I suppose it depends on the performance of your machine, but I've had quite a few and no issues so far. So you can choose any number, and you can have different instances share the same number, for example. So you could trigger more than one instance at once. So if we choose a number, let's say like 5, and then if you go to this one, and then you've got this setting, receive exit trigger channel number, and we set that to the same thing. So one thing that you want to do is make sure that these two numbers never match on the same instance, otherwise it will bypass the exit trigger, so it won't actually work. So yeah, you just want to make sure that they're different. So just to recap, so we're sending on exit channel 5, and on the receiving one we're receiving on exit trigger channel 5. So right, for the receiving one we also need to change the trigger method. So if we change that to exit trigger only, and I think that's correct. So if I press play now, let's see what happens when we actually, what I'm going to do, because currently that's still set to use that static mesh actor, so we need to change that. So you can trigger the exit trigger from that, but I'm going to do it with the collision box. So just come to that, and where's the setting gone? So this one, I'm just going to untick that. Right, so so what should happen is we'll come into this box, and then when we leave, it will trigger this one on the quantization boundary that we've chosen to stop at. So we shouldn't have any gaps or anything, provided the quantization starting point matches that. So so we've got the boundary to stop at on this one, set to 4 bars, and on this one, if we come into the, where is it, quartz clock settings, we've got quantization frequency set to bar, and then we've got audio trigger time multiplier set to 4, so that means 4 bars. Okay, so you want to make sure that that matches the stop trigger on the sending instance. So quantization boundary to stop at 4, and if they match, then we should get a nice transition between the two. So let's have a look. And there you have it. A slight delay because we're using 4-bar quantization. So we'll just come out of that. Let's have a look at what we've got here. So there are cases where the player might leave the instance exactly on the quantization boundary, and so what can happen is, because it has to send the signal from one instance to the other via an event dispatcher, there can be a slight delay, and that can actually cause the receiving instance to not trigger at the same time. Okay, but we've got this setting here which will prevent that from happening. So what this does is it will, before it fires its stop trigger logic, it will just do a quick check to see if the player has actually exited on the quantization boundary or just before it, and if that is the case, then it will delay the stop trigger until the next quantization boundary. So we could probably have a look at that and see the effect that it has. So if I just hit play, so this is without that setting on. So yeah, you notice just then I managed to exit right on that moment, and it didn't receive the signal in time. Okay, so but if we enable that setting and we try again, yeah, so basically it prevents that gap from happening, and it will then trigger correctly. So let's just have a look at, so if I move that closer, we can see what happens. So what I showed you a moment ago is probably not a great example of it triggering when you exit the collision box. It's just because of the moment that I left it, but let's see if we can make it trigger a little bit quicker. So there is one thing to be aware of when using that setting, is that you should probably have it set to this setting here, quantization boundary to stop at. If you have that set to 1 or 2 beats, then what's going to happen is it's never going to run the stop logic, because it has to ignore the last beat and the first beat of the quantization boundary duration. So for example, if you've got it set to 4 bars, it will, in 4 bars you've got 16 beats. So what that would do is it would, if the player left on, say, the 16th beat or the first beat, then it's going to ignore that for its stop trigger and wait until the next one. So if you've only got that set to 2 beats, then it's never going to actually initiate the stop procedure for it. So just to be aware of. But this was basically set up to trigger like entire phrases of audio rather than like short things like 1 or 2 beats anyway. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. There's some other things you can do. For example, is like you can daisy chain them. So let's say if I had this one, I could have that send an exit trigger on this one, and I could use channel 6, and then on this one I could say I want to receive the exit trigger for channel 6. And if we just quickly change the audio on this one as well, so let's find another sample that sounds nice. I guess that'll do. So hopefully, if this is set up correctly, we just didn't change anything, did I? So audio time multiplier is 4, and let's check that that one's sending it on the 4th. Yeah, 4 bars. So so what should happen is we'll trigger this one by going into it, and then when we come out we're gonna trigger this one, and then when the player passes through this one, it's going to trigger this one. So if we just want to make sure that's set to, I want to change that from start to collision box trigger. So let's try that. That's not necessary, but I'd prefer it to trigger when I walk into it rather than starting. So disclaimer, quick edit. I just realised that the middle instance had this setting ticked, so when I tried it, it didn't work. So I was really confused for a moment because it was expecting me to walk into that mesh to trigger the stop. So yeah, I'm just gonna try it again. So just press play. Wait for that 4th bar, should trigger the next one. So what you could do is if you wanted to come back on yourself and re-trigger the audio, these exit triggers, they only sort of work in one direction, but there's nothing to stop you from putting different audio instances and on the way back and having them only triggered by exit trigger as well. So you could have one load of sound for when you're going this direction, and then when you come back you could have it trigger a bunch of different sounds, so your audio is constantly progressing. But yeah, this is basically the way in which you would sort of structure different music. So you could have it progressing. Other than that, you can obviously just have audio triggered when you walk into a collision box, but this is a nice way to sort of keep things musically timed and transition from one thing to the next. So that sort of covers it. The only thing that I did think of saying earlier and I didn't bring up was when you're using start triggers. So obviously things that you want to start when you hit play, you want to use that, but you can also use that setting. It's quite useful if you're doing like sound design for your level. So what you might want to do is start off with just creating a whole bunch of sounds and use the start trigger for them, so every time you press play you can hear what you're working on, and then you don't have to run around to trigger things. So and then once you've got everything sort of created, you can start sort of structuring your level and how you want things to progress. So yeah, that is the trigger system and how we stop the audio. So yeah, if you've got any questions, just leave them in the comments, and hopefully you found that interesting. So I think we're going to do a video on the custom meta sounds next and how we set that up. So and what it is and how we can edit one of the templates and sort of create our own patch and use the user variables and maybe use the proximity fade. Well, not proximity fade, the proximity variable for custom meta sound, and you can have a look at that and how it works. So yeah, see you in the next one. Cheers, thanks for watching.